Dingle tells us how the tariffs will affect your constituents in Michigan, state synonymous with the auto industry. Also, the Department of Justice is urging prosecutors to drop corruption charges against New York City Mayor Eric Adams. The move comes after Adams spent time at Mar-a-Lago raising eyebrows, and military recruitment is up, a trend that started last year. It's Tuesday, February 11th. Actress Jennifer Aniston is 56 years old today. The news is next.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. President Trump has imposed 25% tariffs on all imports of aluminum and steel into the U.S. NPR's Danielle Kurtzleben says Trump's new action could initially have a positive effect.
In the nearest term, these should be good for American steel and aluminum companies because tariffs raise the prices of steel and aluminum, and they protect against some foreign competition. And markets seem to think so. Yesterday, shares of Alcoa, which is an American aluminum company, and U.S. Steel were both up. But that doesn't mean it's great for the rest of the economy.
That's because many economists say industries that use aluminum and steel, like aircraft makers, automakers, companies that build bridges, could get hurt. These metals are now more expensive, and with these higher costs, people working in those industries may lose their jobs. Jordan's King Abdullah will visit the White House this morning, and his meeting with President Trump is highly anticipated. Trump has demanded that Jordan and Egypt accept all Palestinians now living in Gaza, a suggestion both countries have rejected. Yesterday, Trump insisted that all hostages held in Gaza be returned to Israel by Saturday. Otherwise, he said, quote, all hell is going to break out. Hamas has delayed this weekend's release of 3 hostages as stipulated in the ceasefire deal. NPR's Kat Lonsdorf has more.
Trump made the comments in the Oval Office while speaking to reporters, but didn't specify what that threat meant or how it would work. He called for the ceasefire to be canceled by noon Saturday if all hostages were not released by Hamas, but also said that Israel could, quote, override it. The fragile ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas, which the U.S., including members from Trump's administration, helped broker, calls for Israeli hostages to be released over the course of several weeks in exchange for Palestinian prisoners and detainees each time. Hamas has said it will delay the release of more hostages, quote, until further notice, accusing Israel of violating the ceasefire agreement. Israel has said it has placed its troops in Gaza on heightened alert. Kat Lonsdorf, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
The first of 3 separate winter storms is pummeling parts of the U.S. this morning. NPR's Giles Snyder has more.
The first storm is moving east out of Kansas, where Governor Laura Kelly has declared a state of emergency. The storm will bring significant snow and ice accumulations to the mid-Atlantic. Winter storm warnings extend from Kentucky to southern New Jersey. And Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin has also declared an emergency amid warnings of treacherous travel conditions and potential power outages. On the heels of the first storm, another round of heavy snow from a second storm is expected from Kansas and Missouri into the Great Lakes, and will be on the East Coast by Thursday morning. A third significant storm is expected to bring the threat of flooding to California, especially to areas devastated by last month's wildfires around Los Angeles. Giles Snyder, NPR News.
You're listening to NPR News from Washington. From the WLRN Newsroom, I'm Christine DiMattei. Republicans in Tallahassee have called a new special session for today, aimed at changing the sweeping immigration bill that the legislature passed last month, the one that Governor Ron DeSantis criticized as being too weak. From our sister station, WFSU in Tallahassee, Tristan Wood has this report.
In a joint statement announcing the session, Senate President Benjamin Albritton and House Speaker Daniel Perez said the bills proposed in the special session are products of feedback from DeSantis, Agriculture Commissioner Wilton Simpson, in collaboration with the Trump administration. The new session comes after Governor Ron DeSantis pledged to veto the package lawmakers passed in January. In a video posted to the social media platform X, he pledged to support the new bills.
Now we have a mandate. We got to deliver on that mandate, and the state of Florida is doing all it can to be great partners with the federal government in this very important national initiative.
DeSantis' pledge to veto their first package came after they rejected immigration bills he supported by gaveling out the first special session DeSantis called, then gaveling in their own. The new proposals in the previous one lawmakers passed are very similar. However, the new legislation would task a board consisting of all 4 Florida executive cabinet members to coordinate cooperation on immigration enforcement with the federal government. It It would also make it a state crime to enter Florida as an undocumented immigrant, one of the main asks in DeSantis' proposal. I'm Tristan Wood.
The Venezuelan government says it has flown 2 plane loads of deported migrants from the United States back to the South American country. Regional aircraft from the Venezuelan state airline picked up the deportees in Texas yesterday. U.S. officials notified their Venezuelan counterparts that some of the deported individuals were members of a Venezuelan street gang who were accused of crimes here in the United States. These are the first Venezuelan deportees to be sent back since dictator President Nicolás Maduro agreed last month to begin receiving them again. This month, President Donald Trump revoked temporary protected status for hundreds of thousands of Venezuelan migrants. This is WLRN News. I'm Christine DiMattei. Here's Natutwe.
Thank you, Chris. You're tuned to 91.3 WLRN. We're live and local. We're South Florida's NPR news source.
We're funded by WLRN members and by Litowitz Foundation. Litowitz Foundation in support of the highest quality programming to enlighten the public on important issues since 1999.
You can discover the future of engineering at Florida Atlantic University. Their new biomedical engineering department offers innovative tracks in tissue engineering and biomaterials, biorobotics, and biomedical devices and smart health. You can benefit from cutting-edge facilities and top-tier faculty involved in groundbreaking research. Your future starts now. More at eng.fau.edu.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the Skoll Foundation, dedicated to powering social innovators to transform the world. Learn more at skoll.org. And the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation at rwjf.org.
This is Morning Edition from NPR News. I'm Leila Fadel in Washington, D.C.
I'm A. Martinez in Los Angeles, California. Coming up, we'll hear why Army recruitment numbers are up. But first,
President Trump and Jordan's King Abdullah are meeting today at the White House.
Jordan is one of the closest U.S. allies in the Middle East, but today's meeting is expected to be a little awkward, to say the least. Trump has floated pushing Palestinians from Gaza into Jordan and Egypt. That's a plan rejected by both countries and the Palestinians.
To discuss what to expect today, NPR's Jane Araf joins us from Jordan's capital, Amman. Hi, Jane.
Hi, Leila.
So, what do you think the tone of this meeting will be after Trump has repeatedly said he wants the Palestinians out of Gaza and wants to own it?
Yeah, I would expect tense, and that's probably an understatement. It's hard to put a good face on this. That's because, as you noted, Jordan is a key ally, and without any consultation, according to Jordanians and White House officials, Trump floated that plan last week during a meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for the U.S. to take over Gaza and forcibly push 2 million Palestinians to Egypt and Jordan. Monday night, Trump doubled down, threatening Jordan if it didn't accept the plan.
If they don't agree, I would conceivably withhold aid, yeah.
So Jordan is a small country with a large number of refugees, and it relies on foreign aid. But this plan is one of those rare ones that has united citizens and the country's leaders in opposition to it.
And what is the king likely to say?
Well, I spoke with Marwan Washer, the foreign minister of Jordan, now with the Carnegie Endowment think tank. He says this is going to be one of the toughest meetings the king has faced. Let's listen.
The meeting is not going to be an easy one because there is no amount of pressure, in my view, that the United States can exert that Jordan can accede to. This is an existential issue to Jordan.
And by that he means that creating an alternative Palestinian homeland here means that Jordan would essentially cease to exist as a country in many ways. The majority of its citizens are already descendants of Palestinian refugees. So this is something that Jordan doesn't believe it could or ever would agree to, no matter what the cost.
Now, as you point out, Jordan has rejected this plan, but what has the government officially said so far?
Well, the Jordanian foreign minister, Ayman Safadi, has quite clearly said that expulsion of Palestinians here would be a breach of its historic peace treaty with Israel and therefore seen as a declaration of war.
Despite that, Trump keeps insisting Jordan and Egypt will succumb to U.S. pressure, and the U.S. has leverage in the form of aid. Does Jordan have leverage?
I asked Moasher, who's also former senior official at the World Bank, about that. Here's what he said.
Jordan gets $1.6 billion from the United States each year. Any loss of that assistance is going to produce economic difficulty for Jordan. This is not to say also that cutting off aid to Jordan is not that easy.
So he points out that Congress would be quite resistant to this because it's a friend. Many of Congress people are friends of Jordan.
If the U.S. cut aid, would other countries step up?
Well, there is one key friend, Saudi Arabia, and its rulers have made clear that they will not accept this plan. So in the end, that could be what stops it.
NPR's Jana Ruff in Amman. Thank you.
Thank you.
President Trump has brought back 25% tariffs on all steel and aluminum imports. His decision on Monday also set new standards for steel and aluminum in North America to prevent countries such as China and Russia from dodging tariffs by first sending their steel to Mexico and Canada, where it might be relabeled before being brought into the United States. So what's the impact of this on a place known for manufacturing? We called up Democratic Representative Debbie Dingell of Michigan, a state virtually synonymous with the auto industry. Dingell serves on the House Energy and Commerce Committee. So, Congresswoman, what's your impression of the president's latest tariff move?
Good morning. Here is the issue that I have. I do believe, unlike many, I understand the importance of tariffs. And tariffs are a tool in the toolbox to level the playing field. We need, especially in the manufacturing sector, autos and steel, we need trade policies that are going to level that playing field, making sure that we're able to compete in the global marketplace. The problem with the way that this was done, again, is it's across the board on two countries. One is really more of a friend than people realize. The auto industry is intricately linked in the supply chain with autos. There's no time to consider it.
Which one is the friend that we don't seem to realize?
I think it's time that we start treating Canada and Mexico differently. The North America Free Trade Agreement called NAFTA, which many may have heard of but don't know about, I believe is one of the worst trade negotiations ever negotiated. But China is now still bringing steel into Mexico. It enters the U.S. market via Mexico. China, by the way, is trying to build auto plants in Mexico and then market their vehicles in North America as North American vehicles. We have to renegotiate USMCA as soon as we can. But Canada has really, it has former labor standards, environmental standards, quality standards, and it is intricately linked with the industries in both places.
I've heard you admit, Congresswoman, that U.S. trade policy needs to be strengthened. So when President Trump explains tariffs, as he did this past weekend on Air Force One...
Very simply, it's if they charge us, we charge them.
So if they charge us, we charge them. Why isn't that a good, simple way to do it?
Because it's more complicated. I wish that it was that simple. But across the board tariffs, without time for companies to adjust and understand what the unintended consequences are, it's going to end up hurting the American worker. It's going to disrupt supply chains. This could terribly, right now, disrupt supply chains. And it's going to raise the cost for consumers. But a well thought out trade strategy, doing it ahead of time, we need a steel industry in this country. It's a national security issue, not just an economic security issue.
How long do you think before your constituents say, notice these changes, notice when it starts to hurt them?
So, again, this is complicated. You will remember that in 2016, I said that Hillary Clinton was going to lose, and everybody thought I was crazy. I believe Donald Trump won the presidency in 2016 because Democrats did a terrible job at trade policy. You want to go into my U.S. Steel plant that's going to close? Those workers are demoralized. They want to see us do something, but they don't want to see us hurt the industry. They want to know somebody's fighting for their job. But you also have to realize that we're competing in a global marketplace. Some of this new administration doesn't like EVs. The global marketplace wants EVs, and we can't have a strong domestic auto industry if we're not building what the global market wants as well.
Now, the Trump administration says this move will benefit steel and aluminum producers in the U.S. in the long run. Do you think these benefits will eventually outweigh the immediate impact? So, in other words, Congressman, short-term pain for long-term benefit?
I think the way that they're being done so quickly and not giving people not taking a little more measured approach could hurt. I think if they were to take a measured approach, it will reinforce and strengthen our manufacturing sector.
In what way?
It'll give us a strong steel industry here, but you just can't do it overnight. You have no idea how many times a part will come across the border 4 or 5 times in the supplier industry for different things to be done. We're building a bridge in Detroit, and they were very concerned because they bring supplies for that bridge, which is going to open in a few months, back and forth every day. How do you handle that?
Is there anything you can do to push back on this, or is this something that you're just going to have to deal with because Trump administration's in power right now?
I have said and made it clear that I will work with President Trump on trade policies because I think it's very important, and I think it's not only an economic security issue. We need to bring our supply chains back to this country, and while you and I are talking autos and steel, we need to bring our pharmaceutical production back to this country. 80 to 90% of it is made offshore. That's a national security issue too.
That's Democratic Congresswoman Debbie Dingell of Michigan. Representative, thank you.
Thank you.
The White House has been celebrating a jump in military recruiting with some of the highest Army enlistment numbers in more than a decade. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth posted on X, America's youth want to serve under the bold and strong America First leadership of Donald Trump. Now, that may be true, but as NPR's Quill Lawrence reports, Army recruiting numbers have been increasing for at least a year.
Army recruiting numbers in December and January broke records, according to Pete Hegseth. Here he is speaking last Friday at his first public forum since he became Secretary of Defense.
I think we've seen an enthusiasm and excitement from young men and women who want to join the military actively because they are interested in being a part of the finest fighting force the world has to offer and not doing a lot of other things that serve oftentimes too often to divide or distract.
Hegseth went on to condemn slogans about diversity in favor of unity. The same day, Hegseth signed an order that no one with a history of gender dysphoria would be accepted into the military, though he did say trans people who have volunteered to serve will be, quote, treated with dignity and respect. It is true the military was having a hard time hitting its recruitment goals. According to Army data, there were 15,000 enlistments short in 2022 and 2023. But that turned around in 2024, months before Trump's electoral victory.
It's more that they had met all of the goals that they needed for FY24 and then had a surplus.
Taryn Sylvester researches military recruitment at the Center for a New American Security in Washington. Sylvester says at the end of 2023, the numbers started improving, and the surplus from 2024 is making the numbers look really good now as that trend continues. A major reason is an Army program for future soldiers that helped Americans get physically fit or academically up to speed so they could qualify to join. As for the military being woke, Sylvester says the people who enlist are pretty much like other Americans.
Across the political spectrum, the military is generally reflective of society. You have the same kind of spread of political ideology among service members as you do in the wider society.
In fact, the Army data show that the recruiting bump in the past year included an increasing number of women and a disproportionate number of Black Americans, especially Black women, signing up to serve. Quill Lawrence, NPR News.
This is NPR News.
It's Morning Edition on South Florida's NPR News Source. We're 91.3 WLRN. I'm Natu Twe. The DOJ is ordering Manhattan prosecutors to drop the corruption case against the New York City Mayor Eric Adams. He was indicted last year on corruption charges, but has denied any wrongdoing. And during the Los Angeles fires, President Trump criticized California for not clearing enough brush. But fire experts say cutting it down would actually increase the wildfire risk, not decrease it. More on both those stories in 15 minutes.
Alton Brown from Food Network and Iron Chef America brings his culinary variety show to the Allreen Theater at the Broward Center with culinary mega hacks, funny food songs, and more. Alton Brown Live, Last Bite, February 18th. Tickets at browardcenter.org.
February is the month of love, and at WLRN, we're all heart when it comes to our listeners. We love bringing you the stories that matter, the music that moves you.